So today we're going to go through looking at my first plein air urban sketching sketchbook. If you can see, this is a Canson mixed media sketchbook that I used, and I decorated the front just with a paint pen to kind of make it personalized. But I originally got my start doing art just with drawing in a sketchbook, and but I knew eventually that I wanted to get into painting, plein air, and urban sketching. And so this is my very first attempt at painting with watercolor. I got a watercolor set from Walmart actually. It was very cheap, and this was November 28th, 2016. So very, very early on in my art journey. And I didn't really understand anything about how watercolor worked or anything like that. But I was just excited to try it out. So this was after work. The sun was setting, so it was blue time, and I found kind of like a little park in a neighborhood near where I worked at the time, and I pulled over and I sat outside and I painted this. I painted very thickly and opaquely with watercolor, so I didn't really understand that oftentimes watercolor is done in, washes or things of that nature. So I had no idea what I was doing, but I was going for it, and it was really fun. So one of the things that I think is really fun about keeping a sketchbook is getting to see your progress. So pretty much after that, I started going online and looking up watercolor technique, and I started to learn about blending. So this is, I think, two different types of blending that I had done, trying to mix, a red and a blue together through glazes and wet washes, and then also something that's very common with watercolor, which is creating like a value gradient. So that was me kind of playing around with some of my paints. This is my church that I had attempted to do a sketch, but I struggled with the perspective I can see, and basically I abandoned it. Which, never be afraid to do that. I mean, that's kind of what a sketchbook is for. I must have either run out of time or gotten frustrated, I think, to just abandon this. But now looking back at it, it's not that bad. So maybe I should have just stuck with it and completed it. So this is probably my second painting then in December 4th, 2016. One thing I really like about the urban sketching idea is dating your work, and so that you can basically keep track of your progress. And I think I probably did this. I have a feeling that I might have done this one from a photo. Um, but I remember thinking that it was really interesting. Actually, I still live near this house in my neighborhood, and I remember thinking it was interesting that even in the middle of December, that this tree still had all of its leaves. So it was kind of fun, and I can see here that I was playing around with black a little bit. My greens are quite green. That winter, also, this was a practice run for a painting that I did for my girlfriend. So usually, I think if you're an artist, at some point, you'll probably do artwork as a gift for somebody. And this was the home that my girlfriend grew up in. And so this also is from a photo just off of Google Street View. But I took a screenshot of that, and then I was practicing. And one thing that troubled me early on was getting shadows and getting dark enough shadows. And at this point, though, I had been probably learning some bit about glazing and using, blues to go over it. You'll also notice that I am using pen and ink here and washes. So I really started out with pencil drawing, and then I moved on to urban sketching drawings with micron pens. And so I really was attracted to that look of, um, urban sketching with pen and watercolor. So that's kind of what I was doing here. Then this is a landscape that I painted entirely from my imagination. I did a lot of imaginative work, and I was really impressed at the time with artists who could just paint from their imagination. And so that's kind of what I did here. And, it's kind of interesting actually to sort of just sort of let the paint direct itself and see what evolves from it. I think it's Paint Draw Mix, Carter's channel, that he has really a great channel about painting, and that's kind of one of the channels I was looking at early on. And he did a demonstration of a landscape in oil paint that he did from Imagination, and so that was something that I wanted to check out as well. So, kind of continuing to draw from imagination, and I really was challenging myself to draw and paint every single day. And so this is just a kind of a pattern and design, almost if you're familiar with the Zentangle movement, where it's almost like meditative. And I also really like, one of my favorite YouTube channels to this day is Peter Draws, and he does a lot of abstract drawings that are just incredible. And so I was really kind of influenced by that, but also wanting to use color. And I remember doing this and wanting to mix primary colors. So that's kind of, I was making different lines and shapes and things, but also utilizing primary colors. Here again is Peter Draws often would do sort of circular shapes and things. And so I was experimenting with that in a pen and ink style, as well as practicing some hatching. So kind of an anything goes thing. Here's an urban sketch I did in my neighborhood, a little house portrait. Must have spilled some coffee on it. But drove to one of the neighborhoods nearby, where they have like really pretty houses and landscaping, and just sat in my car and did this. And I specifically remember doing this drawing because this was the first time that I kind of got harassed, as it were, for urban sketching. Some lady said, excuse me, can I help you? What are you doing here, sir?" And then I showed her what I was doing. And that was not the first time that happened. It surely won't be the last time, but that's kind of what I remember from doing this. But looking back, I hardly ever paint in this style. This is kind of a very illustrative style, but I really like it. I really like how I was very suggestive with the pen, and in those days, rather than trying to draw everything with the pen, I really kind of used the pen just for texture. So putting in these brick textures and a little bit of the textures of the plants. I really like that style, so I might have to revisit doing that. This is another house in my neighborhood. One of the things I love about my neighborhood, we have these old school classic street lamps, which I really like. So this would have been, I don't think this one's dated, but this would have been sometime in the winter as well. And, I was working on, again, being a little bit looser, a little bit more textural with the pen. And man, I just remember sitting out and doing these sketches. These would take me a really long time, like multiple hours, which is funny because now I'm so much more efficient, even though I'm not as efficient as a lot of great painters. But, I could probably do something like this in maybe like 20 minutes. But I remember at the time spending an entire afternoon on this. I think just because I was so new to it, thinking about color mixing and also thinking about the drawing and all of that. But I really like this. I really like this style, and I might need to revisit this. For some reason, I had left this page blank. I'm not sure. This was another after work sketch that I did. And obviously major perspective issues here. I remember struggling with that a lot, getting the side of this house, and the angle here is totally incorrect. And it was an overcast day, and there was essentially no shadow on this house, so that made that really difficult. But I think at that time too, I really started to discover not just an enjoyment of drawing and observing architecture, but also like the natural aspects of foliage and trees and texturing those things. So I enjoyed that. This is one of my all-time favorite sketches, and I actually did this over the course of 2 days. Maybe even more than that. I sat in front of this house and did the drawing for several hours until I completely lost the light. So maybe for 2 or 3 hours just doing the drawing alone. and then I came back and painted. And I remember one of my friends who helped get me into artwork. He recommended drawing with a thicker line on the outline of this tree to sort of delineate it from the building behind it. And so I was really learning at that time about line weight and line weight variation, adding textures, and obviously some glazing here with watercolor. So I really like this painting a lot. And I had thought about giving this to whoever lives here, but I chickened out and never panned out. I believe I did this from a photo just on a practicing, and I kind of at this time wanted to graduate from using the very cheap Walmart watercolor set that I had, and so I splurged and I bought myself a color of Winsor & Newton artist grade ultramarine blue, and so I wanted to do this painting with that with those colors, and so that was just kind of an experiment here using a stock photo. This is another one of my really favorite urban sketches that I did. This took me an entire afternoon. And one of the things that I wanted to try here is to shade my shadows using pencil. So if you look closely, these sort of mid-tone shadows are actually shaded with just number 2 pencil. And then watercolor is gone over it. But I felt like I worked super hard on getting the perspective right, and then I really tried to work hard on also getting the tonal values right. And I just, yeah, to this day I love this sketch a lot. But this was an entire day of work. More doodling. I had a friend who wanted me to create a album cover for him, and I was just experimenting now with no lines, just with paint blobs. More inspiration from Peter Draws, and I think he might have used this for an album artwork or maybe promotional, you know, photo or something for his album. This is at our local botanical garden, and I started to go to the botanical garden to do some sketches. And this painting, I remember doing it, and obviously it's super loose, perspective issues. It's not very good, but I did get to see it used for a local sketch walk group that I set up, and this was the poster to invite people to come to the sketch walk, and I did that for maybe a year or two. Quarterly, people could come, and I hosted it, and that was a lot of fun and really, really interesting. So I might need to break that back out again. That was with my old job. That is in 2017. This is also at the botanical garden, and they have these are water lilies, and obviously Claude Monet is one of my all-time favorite artists, and this is just super cool to get to do that. Obviously, the perspective and the distance from the flowers themselves is so far away that it's hard to get it. And you can see that I really focused a lot on the textures, and it looks to me like probably what I did was I think I painted it first with watercolor, and then I went in with ink over the top of it with a micron pen. And that's just kind of an interesting variation of style. This was a quick sketch though. And let's see, what did I write here? Water lilies at Lorton Garden, June 25th, 2017, 5 p.m. Painted on scene in 20 minutes, ink at home from the photo. So I was starting to get, more education, I think, about even just that you don't have to complete a sketch in one sitting, or it doesn't have to all be done plein air. So now that I've read that description, I remember maybe not being entirely happy with how it looked when I got home. And so I decided to add that ink later at home. This is an experiment with alcohol ink markers. And I got a set of grayscale markers. Some people use those quite a bit, and I know some artists were using those for urban sketching. So this is just a vitamin bottle on my table at home. But I discovered that you need special paper for that because, as you can see, it bled through. And I think it might have bled through, maybe it didn't quite bleed through to this page. So, but I kind of realized that, okay, I need to get special paper. The marker paper is kind of expensive, and it just feels like a totally different discipline from what I had been working on. So I didn't ever do a lot with alcohol ink markers, although I have some, and I did end up getting a paper from it. I never mastered it. I've done a few things with it though. This is back at the garden, and I really love this piece. I felt like this is a much more refined piece. I took a long time with it. Of course, with watercolor, leaving the white of the page as the highlights and kind of working your way towards dark. I probably could have gone darker here, but it was fun. This took an entire afternoon. I remember being absolutely exhausted. Um, yeah, August 12th, 2017. Absolutely exhausted after doing it, which I often am when I go plein air painting. But I think that this taught me too, the value of, you can see I'm using hatching. I'm thinking about tonal values. I'm thinking about texture. I'm thinking about line, composition. Sort of vignetting it. This pot or basin is massive. This would probably come up to my chest, maybe. Um, I'm learning a lot from this process. I think one of the things that I learned the most from this was just taking your time, making sure that you spent, a good solid amount of time on this. So this is, I remember this is the first painting I did with a Cotman set. I got a different set of watercolors, Winsor & Newton Cotman set. And this is from a photo, I believe, maybe for Inktober, I can't remember. But just a house in my neighborhood, trying new colors. And then I discovered John Singer Sargent and his watercolors. And those were incredible to look at. And I really loved his looseness. And I noticed that he didn't really use any lines. No, you could barely ever see like any pencil lines. And there's a softness to them. And so I want to explore with that. And so I abandoned the pen here. And this is kind of a Spanish style apartment. Actually, ironically, it was funny that it turned out that one of my friends lived here, and she came out of the apartment while I was painting, and I had no idea. So that was a little bit funny. But yeah, I really enjoyed painting this one on a bright sunny day, and I kind of like this loose style, more of like a pure watercolor style. So that was in September of 2017. This is another painting in that style as well. A house near my church, and they have some statuaries and stuff, which is really cool. And I had to literally sit, there's like a road in between this house and where I was sitting, and a speed bump like right in front of this house. And so it was kind of funny because while I was sitting there, again, one of my friends slowly went over the speed bump, my friend Kyle, and he said, "Hey, Danny." I said, "Hey, Kyle." And he kept driving. So I remember that. And that's one of the beautiful things of urban sketching and plein air painting is like you get this tactile sense of memory for all the sketches that you do, even if you're just painting, everyday common things. It'll really tattoo itself into your mind, and so that's one of the beautiful benefits of a sketchbook. But here, obviously I'm using the Cotman set. I believe I'm experimenting with going dark with some of my colors, experimenting with different greens. But the goal here is trying to be soft, trying to stay soft and loose. And yeah, that was kind of fun. This is, my cousin got married up in Montana, Helena, Montana, and I went up to the wedding and stayed with some of her friends. And this was their house. I intended to also give this as a gift, as a thank you gift for letting me stay there, but it never got actualized. So I think by the time I finished it, then I found out they were moving or something, and it just didn't work out. But back to using the pen. So at this time, it's still to this day highly experimental. So kind of bouncing between using the pen and not. So now this is back to some imaginative work. And one of the things that's interesting, I'll have to maybe show this at a later time in the community tab on my channel. But this was me planning for one of the first narrative, maybe the only narrative-based painting that I've ever done. One of my favorite Christmas songs is "I'll Be Home for Christmas," and I really loved. There's this beautiful house in my neighborhood. They put candles in all the windows around Christmas time. And if you don't know, the song "I'll Be Home for Christmas" was actually written for the soldiers, the American GIs in World War II, who were deployed during Christmas time. And at that time, at the beginning of the war, the hope was that um, the war would be over by Christmas. And of course, that didn't actualize. And so a lot of people were, dying, were getting injured, were suffering. And that song, "I'll Be Home for Christmas," it's a very wistful, melancholy song. The line is, "I'll be home for Christmas, if only in my dreams." And so I kind of took this idea, this urban sketch, and I was messing around with this idea of like a World War II era soldier coming back home. And the way that I did it in the canvas painting, I did it in acrylics at the time. I hadn't started with oils yet, but I actually made the soldier transparent, almost as if there's room for interpretation, almost as if it's his ghost coming home, or perhaps just in his mind, in his memory, he's thinking about being home. So I remember I did this while I was waiting for a student to show up while I was teaching music lessons, and I just did this quick out of my bag, out of my imagination, and then later I turned it into actual studio painting with acrylics. I painted on the back of that then. This was for one of the sketch walks that I hosted with my work. And this is looking up the street. This is one of our famous Omaha ice cream parlors, 10 Wallies, and one of the famous churches in the Benson neighborhood. So um, colors are very sporadic, super, super loose here. And because I was hosting, I was really walking around and chatting with people a lot. So this is just a very kind of casual sketch. I don't think I dated it. I also, at that time, was starting to get into acrylic painting. And I started to wonder if I could paint. There's no reason why you can't paint acrylic on paper. So this is from a photo that I took of one of my dearest friends, Connor. I went to visit him. I took this picture. We were at some cool restaurant, but for a door they had like these curtains and everything. So I took the snap of him and then was practicing, painting in acrylic in black and white. And I kind of like how it turned out. It's not that great, but it was kind of a fun exercise. So I have to shout out my friend Michael Stevens, who really helped me get into art. And I'll have to show you some more artwork that we had done together. But in those early days, he really helped me learn how to draw, how to paint, and he was my go-to for that. So I went over to his apartment and we set up a still life of some mugs and just sketched and painted and talked. And so this is from his apartment. And at that time, I was trying to use hatching for tonal values to mixed results. It's a little bit of a quirky thing. But kind of interesting, something just to play around with. I think here again I'm using acrylics. This is my girlfriend, even though this is, quite a terrible painting, but I'm experimenting with using acrylic paint quite thinly and loosely. So starting to get interested in different subject matter. And so I will say, if you ever are going to try and practice sketching somebody, sketching them while they read is usually a good practice. And I think there's some aspects to the fabric that are okay. Obviously, like the features are total garbage. So this is a significant painting because at some point I discovered James Gurney and I discovered gouache. And this is my very first gouache painting. I set up a still life of this apple in my home. And it's funny, I really like this painting. I like it. There's no soft edges. I think I kind of try to get some soft edges up here, but I didn't quite know how to blend with gouache yet. So it's all hard edges, but I really like the contrast I achieved. I think I had a very limited palette at that time. But yeah, this is my first attempt using gouache. So then I remember, I think probably this is the next day or later that week, I set up a similar still life at my girlfriend's apartment, and we both painted some fruit. And I like doing like complementary schemes when I do still life. So, lots of thick gouache here. Some of this reflected light. There's some good stuff. This is a very weird shaped orange, but yeah, this is a really cool painting as well. Probably went a little bit too dark. Trying to learn how to handle the tonal values, but really fun. If you're ever trying to get used to a new paint medium, set up a still life, and that's a great way to practice. Then, of course, naturally, I had to take it urban sketching, but I wasn't ready to go outside with it yet. I probably didn't have like a decent palette yet. This is taken from a photo. This is the First National Bank building, the tallest skyscraper in the state of Nebraska. And I think I had been walking around and I just liked the night scene. And I've always been interested in um, nocturnes, so I want to do some nocturnes plein air. Of course, that's always a little bit sketchy at times, pun intended, I suppose. So this is from a photo. But here we have the very first time I did plein air. This is from my car, my first gouache plein air. Uh, and again, I'll reiterate as I talk about it all the time how much I struggle with cars. Obviously, this car is huge. This car is absolutely massive. But I guess I was parked fairly close to it. I really struggled with grays. I can see all of my grays are way too purplish. But I like the perspective. I like that I kind of got like some variation in the windows here, um, kind of a one point perspective. And yeah, I'm totally learning how to handle the paint. But I really like this. For the very first time of using it, it was kind of a fun experiment. That was in April 19th, 2018. So we've kind of already covered a 2 year span here from, when I'm first starting to paint in the end of 2016 to the middle of 2018. Another YouTube channel that was very helpful to me in the early days was Minnie Small. She did a lot of gouache paintings, and she recommended painting scenes from movies. So I have no idea what movie this is from, but this is George Clooney. And so I just looked up like stills from a movie, and I liked that it was in profile and that I could practice facial hair and there were kind of landscape features and things. And so yeah, I just practiced that from a photo, and it was really fun. Now, this is a true plein air experience because this was in Memorial Park. This was outside. Did I date this one? This is April 23rd, 2018. And I just really loved how the sun was hitting these trees. The sun was setting on these conifer trees. And so I did a quick sketch with this. And just as Memorial Park Rose Garden, which is one of my favorite places to hang out. So um, yeah, really fun. And now I'm starting to do kind of more, you can see like I'm starting to get some washes and soft edges in my gouache application as well as the hard edges, and thinking about shadow and light and controlling that a little bit better. So this is progress. Then I took probably the most fun vacation I ever taken in my life, and this was to Los Angeles. So this is the Griffith Park Observatory, and went with some of my friends. We went way up high on the hills, looking down on Los Angeles, and this was just one of the most peak experiences of painting, being in such a beautiful place with friends and getting to sketch plein air, urban sketching. And if you look online of urban sketches, like there's so many great urban sketches of the Griffith Park Observatory, and it's such a cool place. And it was my first time being in LA, and so this just felt like fully arriving. Like I'm in a magical, amazing place, sketching beautiful things, and that was just truly incredible. And this one I'll remember forever. This was in April of 2018. This was on Venice Beach, and the sun was setting, and we just sat by the ocean, and I sketched this, and yeah, memory I'll cherish forever. Getting to visit my friends, getting to be in LA, such a cool city, and yeah, this was just an incredible experience. I'll remember it forever. Then I came back to Omaha. A little bit of a difference between the early spring in Venice Beach and in Omaha. And I was trying to kind of carry that on. I think this might be back to watercolor, and I was trying to get the gradients in the sky and capture things. You can see I'm using a lot of wet washes. And one of the things I eventually discovered was that I really don't care for this type of paper. This is Canson mixed media paper, which it's actually okay for gouache, but for watercolor, the watercolor doesn't sink in. It kind of sits on top. And anyways, I never quite mastered it. So I really like paper that has a cotton content that'll be a little bit more absorbent than this. So, and as is often the case when I was starting out, if I didn't know what to draw, I would just draw and doodle from my imagination, which is, again, I really feel challenged looking back on some of these because it's something I hardly ever do now, but it's probably something that I should bring back. And I kind of like some of these experiments. In fact, I started a sketchbook that was like, if I didn't know what to draw, I would just draw abstractly, and I have an entire abstract sketchbook that I should show you guys sometime. This was after I started my YouTube channel, one of my very first early YouTube videos of painting in the Rose Garden in Memorial Park, and basically having the painting effectively ruined because I was, unbeknownst to me, sitting on top of an automatic sprinkler. So just as I was getting started, like the sprinkler system started and like soaked my painting, and it was hilarious. So I stopped, but that I'll link that up in a card later after this video is no longer live. And feel free to leave any questions or comments in the chat if you would like, since this is a live video. But yeah, funny memory, and definitely a lesson learned in maybe being more observant about your surroundings. But this is gouache, and at that time I was painting in gouache dried in a palette, so kind of like watercolor. And I was able to get a lot softer gradients, but I later learned the value of using wet gouache. So this is also in Memorial Park, my favorite place, my favorite park in Omaha. And this is the War Memorial, and yeah, I love this painting. I think this guy is maybe a little bit dark, but it works because it creates like a very strong sense of light here. I've done this same composition several times, so if you follow the channel, you've probably seen similar paintings to this. But I like this composition, and I'd actually like this memorial is a semicircle. I'd like to try it from the other angle. This is, the sun is setting in the west when this is happening. I'd love to come early when the sun is rising in the east and paint it from the other direction just for some variation. So this is another of the sketch walks that I hosted, and this is probably the best painting that I ever did on the sketch walk. This is sort of the Benson neighborhood. This is a classic example of sort of the rear alleyways of Benson. And one of the things, when my music career was starting, this is the back door to one of the venues that I used to play a lot, that I played at the most. And so, yeah, I hosted it, some graffiti. I really like how this painting turned out. And then I believe here I used white gel pen, so that is something that I use on occasion. And I think I had plenty of time to work on this one. I also like the texture that I got on the trees, so this is a decent painting. I kind of like it. After that, as is usual, I went back to experimenting. So I went back to watercolor and pen and ink again, and just trying to get a sense of light and texture, and be a little bit more restrained with my ink lines. So This is the Rose Garden. This is on the other side of the War Memorial. So this is that semicircle I was just talking about, but looking at it from behind. And I've also painted this view a number of times. Um, I believe that this might have been on 9/11. So a lot of times I'll go to Memorial Park on 9/11 and just kind of pay my respects. So I think I might have done that day. It's funny, I remember this painting very vividly because I got so angry. I slammed my sketchbook down. I was like utterly disgusted. I was so angry that I remember it. This is probably still 2018, I believe. But I stopped dating these after a while. But uh, this is a brick house. I was just totally displeased with the color, and I was really struggling with the drawing, the perspective, trying to keep things loose, and just at least at the time, I felt like nothing was going right. And I also remember being crunched for time. Oftentimes that happens to me, especially if I try to paint before work, and then I run out of time. And I think that's what happened. So I got really frustrated and I quit. And I wish that I had, and I wish that I had maybe taken a picture and worked on it at home or come back in another day. Because I actually, looking at it now, it's not that bad. Actually, even just the way it is it's not that bad. So, lessons learned. I feel like, yeah, sometimes you can abandon a painting, but it's really not as bad as I thought, and I didn't need to get so angry. This is also in Memorial Park, looking at St. Margaret Mary's Church. I really like the sense of light that I got, and this is really like a study in greens for sure. This band of trees here is one of my favorite places to go hammocking, and I just hang out in this spot all the time, and I love the old school iconic look of this church. I've painted it many times as well, so I like this painting a lot for the texture that I achieved. Yeah, and this is really a nice one. Then I got to go on another big trip. This time I didn't bring gouache. I brought just watercolor and pen, and this is New York City, and such an amazing trip. This is from the New Jersey side, looking across the river at the One World Trade Center, and I was just awestruck. My whole life, I've always been in love with New York, and such an incredible experience. So this is probably like a 10-minute sketch, but I've gotten to visit New York City 2 or 3 times, and every time it's amazing, and I want to go back. So this was an incredible experience. I think it would be cool to go back and to have like the purpose of what I'm doing being urban sketching. With this, I was on a vacation with my family. My dad was running the New York City Marathon, and kind of just like sneaking in little sketches here and there in between all our other activities as a family. This is probably my favorite urban sketch of all time because this is not from a photo. This was done in one sitting. Um, yeah, and this is the Brooklyn Bridge. I've It's such an iconic scene, and it was such a beautiful day. Uh, I just love it. I love how it turned out. There's no like huge errors. I was able to kind of approximate things in the background enough, and have this be the focal point. I think it was a good composition. I ended up repainting this in oil paint as a commission, and I can link that video up here if you want to see that process. But this was the sketch, and I wouldn't mind framing this at some point. This is not just one of the best urban sketching experiences of my life, but just one of the best memories as well. So super cool. And then I went walking with my dad in New York. There's this really interesting, I guess you could call it a bike path or a walking path. It used to be a above ground railroad that got decommissioned, and they've just turned it into like kind of a really beautiful pathway called the High Line in New York. So it's elevated above the street, and like the cars drive under it. And so this was up on the High Line, and I did an urban sketch there. It was kind of interesting. It was overcast that day, but here you can see me. I think I was working fast, but just trying to capture some of that street scene, classic urban sketching situation, reflection by leaving the white of the page. And then this is the view from the Grand Hyatt Hotel in Manhattan where we stayed, and just trying to get that sense of light uh, out the window of the hotel. Um, I got to go to the Metropolitan Museum, and I started doing a sketch there. That also was one of the best experiences of my life. And I started to sketch and paint a statue there. When all of a sudden I realized that I felt really ill, and the museum started to close. So I called an Uber, and I ended up being super, super sick. So it was good. It was good that I left when I did, but unfortunately I didn't get to finish this one. I came back to Omaha then, and this is from a photo that I took of a duck at the zoo, a mallard, I guess. And I really liked sort of the iridescent reflective quality here and the proportions. I thought that I got also a good quality in the water. So this was kind of a nice painting. I think this, I can't tell if this is gouache or watercolor or a mixture. And of course, as you've heard me say and many other people say, there isn't really effectively like a huge difference between gouache and watercolor. I know I can see some gouache here, but I might have actually been mixing gouache and watercolor a little bit on this painting. But yeah, that was a nice one. This was just a studio painting that I did. And I believe this is the last sketch that I did. So this was, I also have a YouTube video for this one. I sketched from the car and did just a quick sketch of a cool building at in the middle of town. So I did that, and that concluded it. That was in March of 2019. So that's my sketchbook, Canson Mixed Media, and from the humble beginnings of December or November 2016, to some of these paintings in 2018, 2019. Especially this one. Really like this one. I really had a lot of progress. So highly recommend. I don't know if I would recommend this exact sketchbook per se, but I would recommend keeping a sketchbook. Let yourself, paint what you see and what's in front of you. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching that. So remember, you have a voice that matters. Go be creative. I'll see you next time.